Hello, and welcome to the Craft Brewed Music Podcast, the official podcast of Craft Brewed Music, the music discovery app that streams better music for serious listeners. Here we explore and get to know the creators of that music. I'm Brian Horner, founder and curator of Craft Brewed Music, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host, Aaron Stamen, a Craft Brewed Music artist.
Hi, everybody. This episode, we'll be talking to Jesse Terry, a fantastic singer-songwriter, and we'll be highlighting music from his upcoming release this week, When We Wander. This is a terrific new album from Jesse. It was terrific to talk to him, and this was a great listening experience for me and for Brian. And I think it's a listening experience that kind of gets to the core of the craft brewed music experience, which is listeners who want more depth out of their music and want to gain a better understanding of where the artist is coming from. And this is a album that the more listens you give it, the more you get back. And I think Brian and I both kind of went through a journey of discovery with this one, and got to understand some more layers that we didn't capture on the first listening, and we were able to explore those further in our conversation with Jesse.
Yeah, I've been a huge admirer of his music for years now, and was excited to get to hear this album before its release. It's out this Friday, May 14th, so you're going to get a little preview of it here, and can find more information at jesseterrymusic.com. We're going to start with the title track, When We Wander.
Nobody knows that glint in your eyes. You leave this home we built in a moment's time, and sail away without knowing the wind. For we may never have the chance again. When we wander, don't it feel like we're finally found? When we wander, we always find our way somehow.
So When We Wander seems to be a great kind of summary of how you and your family approach all of this, your career, your touring. Your wife has, I believe, took the photograph that's on the cover of this new album.
Yes, yeah.
And that's a really, really cool thing to watch play out.
Oh man, thank you so much. Yeah, it's definitely our philosophy, and of course, we had to figure out the meaning of the album after the pandemic, because I wrote and recorded that right before, and then I was like, oh man, like
there's no more wandering.
May 2020 release, When We Wander. I was like, might need to push that back, But then we wandered into all these different things. Like my wife lost her job in March or April 2020, and we had to pivot, and I bought a studio and learned how to. So there's so much more wandering, and it was much more brave, I think, really, than just the traveling that we did before.
Yeah, that's a good point. There was a lot of, with all the artists I work with, there was sort of a different kind of wandering. At first, I think it was kind of like walking around in circles in your living room.
Yes, yeah,
and then figuring out, being forced to figure out how to make this all work, this new reality that's stretched into a year plus now.
There was a good 2 months of wallowing and therapy, intense therapy before we started being proactive. And then I feel like things really did start getting started to change, and there was some silver linings there, some real positive things.
I guess from the standpoint of, I know that you've got a fan base that I think you feel personally connected to, and that feels personally connected to you.
Yeah.
And of course, you cultivate that by seeing them face to face. But there's also another kind of immediacy from the live streaming and that sort of those sorts of interactions that you did that I imagine builds those relationships maybe in a different way as well.
Yeah, it was actually I was down in just making a covers album, like a 22 song covers album that we just wrapped like last week, and well, just wrapped tracking on it. So I had to pause the live streams, like my weekly live streams, just because there's so much work that goes into it and promo and stuff. And like our last weekly show, it felt like a real chapter ended, and it was quite emotional. I was just like, wow, why am I so emotional about this time and this year I spent with these people that became kind of like family and this really kind, like loving community that showed up every week. It was very cool and very weird at the
Yeah,
same time.
And I guess, there were a lot of touring musicians who found themselves home with their families, and that was a silver lining. But
Yes.
since you tour
Yeah.
with your family, was it different to have that much time to figure out what it meant to live in one place together?
Yeah, it was really different. We started doing things like um, you know, maybe we should clean the apartment and like decorate.
Yeah.
And but yeah, like it was weird being in one place. And also, even though we travel together, so much of that is so busy. So
Yeah.
having all that time with my wife and with my daughter Lily, like it was wonderful. But I think also it wasn't all like it was positive, but there was a lot of change that was a little painful as well. Like just I think it was a a time where we realized that maybe we needed to work on ourselves a bit more, which I'm really grateful for now. But just things I didn't have time for before, or maybe it was too busy to notice.
Hmm. Yeah.
You
So,
know?
so are you resuming? I mean, obviously, things are unfolding in a cautious fashion. But do you envision re-engaging with the road as you were before? Do you think this time together and doing the work and changing the perception of the family is going to change how this is going to look when you go back on that road again as a family?
No, I think it'll go back like to how it was. I mean, partially because we love it. Although I do think there'll be a little bit more balance, and um, we'll realize we need to take care of ourselves a little bit better. Like not like with drinking and drugs, but like sleep and like not 200 shows a year.
Right, like a
Yeah.
day off just to do a family
Yeah,
time and not
just like yeah, just a
road
little bit
time
more
and
of
set up.
that.
You're still
You
going to
know,
have the drinking and drugs though, right?
well, the drinking
Right.
and drugs. Yeah, I'm never going to get rid of
Yeah.
that. I mean, don't
Yeah. Yeah.
don't get crazy, man. Like, but no,
Right.
it was.
There's only one way the kids can learn too, how to
I
properly
mean,
use that stuff.
yeah, I mean, show them, don't tell them. No, but it's funny because I mean, I think I really really love traveling and touring, and so does my wife. And Lily actually really loves it too. She's thrived on it, and just gets bored at home. That's our biggest concern at home. But also, as Brian and probably too, Aaron. I mean, the current music economy is just not set up properly for like recorded music. So
Mm.
you have to tour that much. So if I want to continue to do this for a living, which I do, I need to get back to that really full schedule.
And there's the touring and the positives of all of that. I'm sure there's also a lot of a lot of times of doubt and a lot of challenge, obviously, for all of us that work in the business. The song "Just Out of Your Reach" struck me as kind of a song about sticking with it.
Yes, yeah. Just out of your sight.
Just out of your
Close.
sight.
I even typed it wrong here. I'm looking at a note that's wrong.
Are you not prepared for this interview?
It's so
What idea?
close. It was the one word.
It is John, isn't it?
I'm just glad you didn't call me Terry. Most people just call me Terry.
Terry.
Terry, I've been listening to your work all day.
The song "Just Out of Your Sight" seems like it's one about kind of sticking with it and
Yeah.
pushing through those walls.
Yeah.
Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, it was actually like advice from my wife, who's just been really amazing because she moved from New Zealand to marry me after we met in the South Pacific, and there's been many times over the last 10 years where I've said, let's just move back to New Zealand, like, and lead a simple life, like this road can be like so devastating and so stressful at times. And then she's always responded with, you'd be crazy without music. You'd go crazy without music. And inevitably the next time I play some magical show or have some amazing thing happen, it fills me with like the greatest happiness.
She says, hold on for just one more song. We'll lay down with your six string in a grave if I'm wrong. But I know you too well, better than you. As you're tumbling, plummeting, roller coaster rumbling, I've seen it with my own eyes. And as sure as the river is wide, there are diamonds just out of your sight.
So that's what that song is about. Pretty much not moving to New Zealand and quitting music
And being a sheep farmer, I presume.
and being yeah. Well, actually, that's partly what it came from. Well, not sheep, but our friends have a goat farm there, where they make goat milk, and I think they said at one point, if things get, if your career gets tough over there and you need a break, just come over here and we'll give you a job
There's always goat milk.
milking
Yeah.
the goats,
Yeah.
and so
And there's a certain
and
appeal to that, I bet. Yeah.
I mean, if you visited their farm and there's like a mountain range on one side and they're like a half an hour from like the ocean and they're surfers and like, there's times where you're like, that doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound bad. And I've been to New Zealand, and that's when I imagine running away. That's the place I do imagine, and there's plenty of ruminant quadrupeds roaming the island that I would happily take care of as a second career.
Yes.
So Jesse,
Yeah.
do you think they're accepting applications for goat milkers from anybody, or is that offer only good?
I mean, I
for
think
you?
I could
I think he's got
probably
an
like,
inside.
I could get
Yeah.
you in maybe you and Aaron.
I love the line. We'll lay down with the sixth string in a grave if I'm wrong.
Yeah. That wasn't her exact line, but that was definitely like an interpretation
The
of
gist
her,
of it.
what she said.
I'd read that it's the first album that you wrote since having your daughter Lily, and
Yeah.
to be honest, I was expecting, because I've seen, I follow your social media stuff, and which Lily is a very prominent part of because she's adorable,
Oh,
and
yes. Yeah.
and you're obviously and rightfully in love with her, as Aaron and I are with our daughters. I expected an album full of songs like "If I Were the Moon." I was expecting that, and
Dad rock.
dad
Yeah.
rock. Yeah, no, but just an album of like
Yeah.
love songs to your daughter, and which it is in a way, but it's really interesting how much else is there and stuff that I didn't necessarily expect. The song "In Spite of You" seemed to kind of get to the heart of the matter, and then there were a number of other ones, "Little Fires,"
Yeah.
"The
yeah.
Innocent Ones," different ways of talking about the implications of having a child, and I'm really curious to kind of hear
I
about
love
that
that.
side of
Yeah.
this record.
I got that little note from my manager saying, we'd like to delve into some of these songs, and I was like, oh yeah, my boy Brian wants to get dark. Let's let's go there. Because yesterday I recorded 2 podcasts yesterday, like about fatherhood, and it was just like incredibly positive. So I'm like so ready to go there. So let's go.
Yeah.
Well, it's you're I've known you for what 10 years or so, and
Yeah.
listen to your music and always see you with that smile on your face, and just kind of think of you as this sunny guy, with these beautiful melodies and this beautiful voice, and and that beauty is still here, of course. But I was just really interested and intrigued by some of the subject matter.
Oh man, well that's it. Thank you. I mean, yeah, I'm happy to talk about. I'm an open book, as you know, and um, but I'm so happy to talk about that, and also so happy that you knew what I was talking about and responded in that way because I mean, yeah, it's like really important to me that I'm always working on myself, and I am a pretty happy person, but I think it's like a real choice, and part of that is like expressing those things through song, and also knowing that like I'm not the only one. Like that's the great thing about being open about these things is that you know whenever you travel, you just realize that like every almost everybody had a really screwed up like thing happen to them, or can relate or multiple
Yeah.
things. So it's really comforting in that way, So so let me know what you'd like to know.
So my relationship with you, Jesse, was started out, solely with listening to your music, and my impressions were similar to what Brian's talking about. It's like this sounds like a guy who just sees, the silver linings everywhere. He's got an incredibly positive outlook on life, and like this music just kind of breathes positivity and optimism. And then I ran across "In Spite of You," and I said, "Oh,
Yeah, this dude's
there's
dark.
there's a gritty underbelly here, and it makes me so happy because this is this is what I gravitate toward." But Brian knows that I'm um, a Russian literature, and particularly Dostoevsky fan. So, which means I do believe that beauty will save the earth, but that's in spite of all evidence to the contrary. And so I
Right.
need I need the background to be really ugly. And
Yeah,
this
yeah.
song is a great example of surmounting the reality that we grow up in.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I love that, and I love that people can be optimistic and happy and see the silver linings, but also like experience like express what they went through and things they've overcome, and that's the beauty of songwriting to me. So thank you. I mean, as much as I really love singing about happy things as well, like "In Spite of You" was like such a powerful song for me to write because I got sent away to like reform school institution kind of thing at like 13, and that's what that song's about. This horrible place I went, um, and kind of all these people with their kind of psychoanalysis and all their behavior modification techniques that I never thought were a good idea for children, and I still don't, you know.
Hmm.
Um, so I've never forgotten that place, and it's kind of been a motivation um, for me to be like, okay, you could throw me in a padded room when I was 13, but I'm still going to grow up and like, you know, find find my love and have a successful marriage and have a successful career and a child and stuff. It's been a real motivating force for me.
And it almost sounded like you were speaking on behalf of some of your friends there, some people maybe who you shared that experience with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's quite sad, really. Like I'm a part of these Facebook groups where it's all kind of alumni of the school, and um, so many of the kids took their lives. Like whether it was right after we left or it was there's somebody just this like a few months ago. So it's been kind of to be honest, it's been kind of a sad journey to follow and to see like how few of them did well, you
Hmm.
know? To be totally honest, I wish I could say, yeah, like after the school they all went on to like be happy and successful, and it's like it's just not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
That's
almost like a refugee situation where you're kind of, keeping in touch with the other people who made it through the camps, and some got the other side, and some didn't make it as well.
Yeah, yeah, and it's it's amazing that like I've never seen one post from anybody, and this is like a school that like I mean costs like hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to go to. My school system paid for it. Um, I've never seen one post of gratitude, and this is like I mean, how many years later? It's like 20, 28, 29 years later. So it's amazing that that school is still going, and I wish there was something I could do about it. I think I did a Facebook post once or something on it, and like named the school and different people. I never do stuff like that, but I just did one day. And like, I had a lawyer friend say like, you better take that down, like before you get sued. So kind
Wow.
of my way of expressing um, my feelings about that school, and just some of the other situations I was put in as a child that I felt were kind of out of my control. It was just good to kind of put some of those things down onto paper and sing about them.
In spite of you, I'm singing my song, telling stories that feel more like motion pictures. 'Cause the sermons that you sold me all were fakes. In spite of you, I'm finding my way. In spite of you, I've grown up, unlike so many friends who knew you and since have fallen. Guess all the innocence you stole was just too much. In spite of you, I kept enough. But I remember everything, the tears, the telephone once a week, smoke signals that were never seen by anyone who had the means to rescue us from our window panes. With taillights lit up drops of rain and tangled freedom, we could almost taste when mom and dad were safe at home, high on cheap cocaine. In spite of you, I wear a ring, I hold a life I know will never be forsaken. She likes to dance and spin and wake up in the afterglow. In spite of you, I am her home. But you can't erase a life of wrongs with uniforms and emerald lawns, auburn horses, brush back hair, wisteria floating in the summer air. Marching soldiers, single file with padded rooms, just out of sight. We should have been home, sneaking out at night, fumbling in the dark, in the backseat of some busted up car. In spite of
Yeah,
you.
and it's very powerful that you think of a place that's that malignant as being kind of dark and gritty and institutional, but it has all the trappings of something that's supportive and friendly and well organized, with the uniforms, the emerald lawns, and
Yeah,
the
yeah,
wisteria floating in the summer air, and all these kind of the trappings of a uh, of a of an extremely positive experience, and yet there's this the padded rooms are just out of sight, and there's an ominous nature when you fall into that chorus, and that kind of wash of minor chord comes in the back.
yeah. That like funeral organ too.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking
Right.
about that. You represent musically the darkness of the place, and then in the verses, what you were able to, how you were able to transcend that. You know,
Right. Oh
um,
yeah.
I don't know whether that was conscious, but that struck me after having several listenings.
I'm not sure it was. You guys really, what an amazing job you guys did listening to my work. Thank you so much. I'm honored.
We
Really
like
am.
music.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. We can't remember the titles of your songs, but we
That's
did listen to them.
okay. Oh, I can't either, man. I'm in the middle of like album release. I don't know my middle name right now.
So, So Ghost Stories, which I believe is
Yes.
the correct title.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like
Yes.
that's also kind of what we're talking about here. These are some of the stories and some of the backstories of life that you're opening the door to in this period.
I think like that song, I think, as you were talking about, like, the song "If I Were the Moon" is like that big, beautiful song to your daughters about love and protection and stuff. And the other songs are so related to her, though. Just Ghost Stories, kind of having the strength to leave some of your old ghosts behind, and realize that, like, once you have a child, or even like once you're in a relationship, like you have nowhere left to hide. You know what I mean? Like you either make changes, um, or it's going to affect that relationship, or end it. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
I just took that responsibility really extra strong. When I had a child, because I knew I knew what could happen if I wasn't a great parent to her. So, and
Mm.
that starts with me leaving behind any crap that I have.
It's leaving it behind, but it's not whitewashing it either. It seems to me the point of this song is that, we all have a checkered past. We're all somebody else's red flag in a relationship, but
Right.
we're also embracing those things that maybe were mistakes, maybe that were, less desirable aspects of our character, and saying, yeah, it's part of me too. But
Yeah.
I'm also able to overcome that and be the person you need me to be.
Yeah, yeah, you're so right, Aaron, because you can't whitewash it. I've tried that. Like, that's a great thing. I mean, you can't, and you shouldn't be ashamed of it either. It's like, here's what it is. Here's what I want to get better at. Um, and then I think also it's like this ability to trust someone, and know that, like, the person you're with is not the person maybe that you grew up with. You know what I mean? And not putting them in the same box. I think that's like such a big part of it too. But you're right. It's definitely not whitewashing it. That
Yeah.
does that don't work.
and then in the song you offer that as well
Right.
to your
Yeah.
partner.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, and that was like, even though I wrote it before COVID, like it's almost like that song was like a premonition about what my wife and I worked on during that year. Not that we had a bad relationship before. It's just that it just had, like every relationship, it had really a lot of room to grow. Um, and I just had a lot of room to grow as a person. So, um, that was a silver lining that I'm really grateful for.
I got some ghost stories I'd love to tell. Don't want to scare you away, so I've kept them to myself. Distant shadows I've never explained. It's easier to ride these rusty rails, tip my hat like some righteous saint. But I used to walk through these walls, used to lock myself in shackles by a window down the hall. Oh, I was a single wisp of smoke. I was naked to the eye, barely flesh and bone. Someone long forgotten when you said hello.
Yeah, and sharing some of those things that maybe you find off color about your past, create a space through that vulnerability to deepen your relationship.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because then, you know, my wife doesn't have to feel funny about, what's wrong with her, and I can lift her up. It made me more conscious of what I could give to her as well, if that makes any sense.
Do you want to list for our listeners what's wrong with your wife, or do you want to just straight move on? Just we'll move on to the next song, maybe.
He's texting his lawyers right now.
Moving on. No, she's my wife is like a dream. She really is. She's the kindest person. I mean, that's
it's very clear watching you from afar that you adore your wife.
I adore her. Yeah, I mean, but yeah, I did have to like get a better understanding of her and realize just truly how pure she is and like how sensitive she is, and it just didn't make sense to me because she's such a gorgeous woman, and she's such an amazing woman, and I can't believe that I need to tell her that more, but I do. So
you touch on that in Barefoot Child, right, from the Empty Seat on a Plane album.
Yeah, wow. Yeah,
it's
nice,
one of my
Brian.
favorite songs.
Yeah, she is just a very one of the purest people that I've met, like one of the purest hearts, just there's no guard up there.
I keep a guard up myself.
Big wall. You've got a big wall.
It's a real problem. It's been a problem in our relationship, Brian. I think
never get through that thing.
Yes.
I'd like you to take a page from Jesse's book and tell me some of your ghost stories.
We're going to take a quick intermission for a word from our sponsor, which is us. Craft Brewed Music is a curated streaming service that streams better music for serious listeners. Sometimes we hear that people want to hear more of the songs we play on the podcast. There are a couple of ways to hear more Craft Brewed music. You can download the app from the App Store or Google Play and get a free trial. Or you can become a patron of the podcast on Patreon, linked in the description of each episode, and get exclusive bonus episodes containing extra music and a sampling of our other artists. We'll help you discover music off the beaten path so that you become the person your friends turn to for recommendations, and we split our income with the artists. Craft Brewed Music, better music for serious listeners. To hear samples and find out more about us, visit craftbrewedmusic.com.
In Spite of You was kind of a gateway for me after I've kind of lifted the veil of like, wow, this is like really, positive, make me feel good music. I was like, oh, that one's a little different. Then I started looking more into the other tunes, and I was like, oh, this is lurking beneath a bunch of these.
Yeah.
And my favorite of these songs is Little Fires.
I like that one too. I almost thought that should be a single, but I love that song.
It's a great tune, and I misread it or misheard it the first time as the Little Fires being, fires of ambition, fires of creativity, the muse, and things that drive you ahead. And I was like, oh no, these are more sinister. These are things that you can't get rid of that are part of you and how your brain works. And even when times are good, they're still kind of lurking in the background.
Yeah, man, you got me.
Yeah, and that there's no sense in denying that, that's not helpful.
Yeah. I mean, I can talk. Do you want me to just tell you the scoop on that? I don't think I've told anyone this yet.
We didn't want to compel you, but we kind of do.
We want to have a Craft Brewed Music podcast exclusive on this.
I love it. I mean, it's like what are you hiding from? And if someone doesn't like you because you're honest about stuff like that, it's like, well, then who needs them? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's so another big 2020 thing was, so just a little background. So I was a staff writer on Music Row in Nashville after graduating from Berkeley, which was kind of my dream job. And well, it was my dream job at the time, and it was a lot of fun, but it was extremely stressful. And Nashville as a whole was pretty stressful for me, actually. And after 5 years of doing that, I lost that gig, and I'd kind of put everything into that, including like lots of debt and stuff, So I just came down with some really bad anxiety, really bad. And so I went to a doctor, and they're like, oh, I'll give you this pill, and like it's totally safe and it'll take care of it, and so I said, okay, and then I went to another doctor, and they said, oh, that's really addictive, like here's this pill, you know what I mean, take that. And so I did, um, and all these great things happened after that. I met my wife, and I was able to start touring and kind of manage this anxiety and everything. And then but after a while, I started noticing that maybe there were things about me, like I had some road rage, or I'd lose my temper with people I loved, or this and that. And so I decided to wean off this drug excuse me, frog in my throat, in 2020. And, of course, totally legal drug that I'm prescribed and everything, but apparently it was a large dose. And like I said, I really haven't told anybody that. And Little Fires was about that, kind of just that anxiety creeping like around everywhere, which really made performing and everything, very difficult. So now I've weaned down to like where I'm almost completely off the drug, but I had to do it with a lot of, we already like exercised every day, and I haven't drank in like, 6 years, done any drugs, anything like that. So we were already working on that kind of stuff, but we started doing like meditation and mantras and just really learning about how to curb anxiety, how to do different things, different foods. So that was a big thing for me during 2020 that I'm actually super proud of, and I can't wait till I'm totally off it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a great example of something that wouldn't have been possible with your regular schedule, I would imagine.
No. Yeah. I mean, that stuff has to be, that's the kind of stuff like with benzos, like it can be, I read, of course you don't want to Google it, but like I read an article that Stevie Nicks said it was like 1,000,000 times harder to quit than like cocaine, and there's just so many horror stories out there. So it's the kind of thing where you have to go into a rehab if you go cold turkey. So you have to wean off it so slowly, which is what I've done. And not that it changes you like completely, and that the anxiety goes away, but it's been really great kind of like rediscovering myself, and also just seeing some real positive effects from going off that, just being, almost completely natural now. And not that that's for everyone, but for me, it was a really great thing.
Yeah, that's an inspiring parable, I think, for songwriters in particular. I think, and probably more of us struggle with that than don't.
I know there's probably like about like half the songwriters listening are like, "Yep," so I mean,
it's like, should I up my Xanax right now?
Yeah, right. Which is why I never want to say like, judge about that or pull a Tom Cruise or anything like that. It was just for me personally. I noticed some really beautiful changes, and I noticed the the blue of my eyes popping out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just been a really amazing thing to go through, and I'm just grateful I've had the chance to do that. Because before that, Little Fires outside my window, and my grandpa had it. It runs in my family, and so I do hope though that people listen, and people who haven't taken it at least just have that education that they need, kind of, because they're just given out so freely,
They are.
So it'd be good to tell people that this is like a serious thing, that if you need it, that's one thing, but if you can find natural ways to get around it, it's going to be a bear to get off,
I've got an old friend of mine. We meet up every morning and night. She keeps all my secrets, and I love to tell her I'm faring so well. I'll be leaving town for a spell, breathing slow and easy. But what good is lying to yourself? There's little fires outside my window, little can't put out these little fires. We met back when I was so young. She let me trust someone, let me cross an ocean before I knew my family name. Learned my grandpa heard the same, had to suffer in silence. Even when the world is blindingly beautiful, there's little fires outside my window, little fires out of the corner of my eyes, little fires beneath the surface I can't put out these little fires.
Well, the great thing about this song is that it, in sharing the experience with these little fires, you can normalize it for people as well. And even though you can try to treat it pharmacologically, you can get off the medications and find out ways to use your own native brain chemistry through meditation and mantras and exercise to help manage it. We still live with it. It doesn't totally go away, and it's a part of us.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I wonder how much, because it's just so common amongst creative people, how much of it is essential, like, the pain from our past and the mistakes of our past. How much is the anxiety essential to the creative process?
Right. Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, but I don't think it'll ever go, like you said, it won't go away completely. I think it's still you know, probably still be a lifetime struggle, just like we all struggle with different things.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, just like I think it's really important, like, I have to exercise every day, I have to,
Hmm.
but I'm okay with that. I'd rather do that than take that pill every day.
Yeah. But you've also accepted that maybe it's chemistry or faulty circuitry, and that's something you're gonna have with you.
Yeah.
But you figured out other ways to manage it.
Yeah. Well, I think I've also learned that, you can kind of reprogram your brain at times. And um, something really amazing that I learned recently was just that your brain can't sense real and like imagined events. It can't sense the difference between them. So
Hmm.
if it doesn't know the difference between the the F you got in your paper on your science paper in eighth grade and like what you imagined is the bad stuff you imagined was going to happen at your live concert, so
Hmm.
that's made up. So it's really changed my whole outlook to be able to visualize things um, and to try to become a master of visualization.
Hmm.
That's great.
Yeah, it's just I think it's amazing that your brain doesn't know the difference. I never knew that.
Yeah. Well, it's the things we experience in reality, things we experience in our dream world. Like our emotional response to that is equivalent. It doesn't delineate that at all, um, until you reach the next day. You're like, wow, that was terrifying. But
Yeah.
it makes no sense that like purple brontosaurus would actually be in my yard.
Yeah. Exactly.
Speaking of purple
Yeah.
brontosaurus, this is a nice segue back to Lily.
Yes. Yeah.
I I mentioned "If I Were the Moon" earlier,
Yeah.
which is a really beautiful little love song to your daughter. And I think I read in the little blurb you sent over that was the first song you wrote for her. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And did you play it
Yeah.
for her? And was she old enough to kind of get that and have a reaction to that?
Yeah. She does have a reaction to it more and more every day. And we're actually working on like a children's book adaptation on that
Oh,
as
cool.
well, which she
Yeah,
really likes because we tell her Lily Grace is in it, and
Hmm.
uh, she loves that. And yeah, it's been really special. I think it'll be a special gift for her as she gets older.
absolutely. Yeah.
If I were the moon, I'd light all of your back roads. You wouldn't need no headlights. I'd always be full. If I were the moon, I'd carry you through the high tides. You could always reach out for me and feel my gentle pull. If I were the moon, I'd always be near. I'd always be wide-eyed in the big wild blue, watching over you.
Brian had alluded earlier to your singing and your voice, which are very unique, and I love your approach to melody. It's very it's very logical, and the phrasing is beautiful. And one of the things that that Brian and I both find interesting is that, for people who are songwriters, and you started out with that as your profession initially, sometimes the the vocal performance that the songwriter gives is not, I'm thinking Townes Van Zandt and John Prine and people who are amazing songwriters but not the most ornamental of singers. Yet you have the goods as well when it comes to vocal performance and making things ornate and adding falsetto where it's due. And what I really like about your singing, and I'm kind of going back to Just Out of Your Sight as an example of this, is that there's a restraint where you have the chops to do a really ornamental vocal line, but you really save it and keep it simple where it needs to be simple. And I think that's extremely effective in your songs.
Cool, man. Yeah, you don't want to do the Mariah Carey stuff, like in that kind of music, or like you said, unless it's called for. Yeah, I mean, I love Linda Ronstadt she's like maybe my favorite singer, like probably my singing idol,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I mean, in my opinion, maybe one of the most versatile and best singers ever. But really, she got that across mainly with just that tone of her voice and that incredible emotion in her voice. Like she didn't do a ton of like flowery stuff, really,
Yeah.
But man, the actual sound of that instrument is like, whoa,
Yeah.
So,
Well,
yeah.
I had a realization about your singing, and I've always just been in love with your voice and your melodies. And I realized in the last week or so, listening more, carefully in a different way, in preparation for this, that what it is, I think, is that you shape not only your phrases but even individual words and notes at the level of exquisiteness that, say, a classical musician would, shape
Wow.
a phrase and notes. And it's like, I went to classical music school for saxophone, and I studied that. I
Yeah.
studied cellists. I learned how to do that. And most singer songwriters, most popular musicians, using that term really broadly, um, are not approaching it at that level of uh, minute care. And so
Wow.
I'm guessing that that's somehow natural to you. But is that something that you're aware of, or something
Yeah.
you've aimed for?
No, I'm not aware of it. But that's really cool, especially because this album was recorded live, so I
Yeah.
was playing guitar too, and didn't really have time to think of it. So that's a real compliment. That's
Yeah,
really
it's
great that
just
I was able to do that without, really putting too much thought into it. Just pretty
yeah, I
much
think
just
it's just
emotion, and
yeah, musicianship and dynamics, and so yeah.
that's thanks, Brian. That means a lot. I mean, I've made 2 albums since that are coming out later this year. And I did. They weren't live, of course, because they were lockdown albums, and that I spent more time on the vocals. So it'll be interesting to play those for you
Yeah, I'll
too.
be like, no, that sucked.
Yeah, that's not working
No,
anymore. For
that's something I've noticed on your I've noticed on your other records too. I think it's just how you sing, which is
I
great.
think so,
yeah.
because I mean, it must be because this is the first one I've done, totally live, like playing and singing, a la Jason Isbell and Neil Young,
It kind of
which was
pisses
set.
me off because I work really hard, to learn how to do that, and you're like, no, I don't know. Yeah, I guess.
Oh man, I'll take the compliments. As you know, this business is so humbling. So
For sure.
I carry those compliments with me, and they mean a lot.
If you're able to divulge, I'm kind of curious that you mentioned the album of covers that you
Yeah,
just made. What give me a sampling of if you're at liberty to do so. What are the ones you selected?
yeah. There's 22. Would you like?
Well, I guess
Start.
No,
Say them.
no,
Recite
I
them in
won't.
order.
I
I won't
guess
do all of them. But no, I'll give you. No, I'm just playing. I'll give you a little like so. Um, I think we're gonna call it "Forget Me Nots." It's these songs that I can't get out of my head. Besides like the songs that the people that are too close to me, like no, we have like a no James Taylor rule, like no Neil Young, Springsteen. But so let's see, I'm just looking at the track list. Like here's Gershwin, Tom Petty, Carole King, Crowded House, Tom Waits, um, Dylan, Joni.
That's
will it be
great.
available on vinyl?
That's I don't think so, just because well, there's 22 songs, so even if I
Oh
cut,
yeah, that'll take.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of
Could do
money.
like a 3 LP set or something. That's affordable,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, look at
I
vinyl's
think
super
yeah,
cheap these
I think you
days.
can monetize that. I think that'll be in this day and age. That's a really sound advice. Just stick with me
Oh
and Brian. We
man,
can give you the best advice for how to.
yeah, I'm a vinyl guy. Like I love vinyl so much, but
That we
yeah.
should talk about the vinyl on your new record. Looks pretty.
Oh man, yeah, that's
We we
the
should also
prettiest
mention
vinyl.
for people listening, the album that we've been talking about, When We Wander, is out this Friday, May 14th. Um,
Yeah,
and so yeah, it's obviously digital and streaming and CDs, and this really amazing. Is it called Sea Glass Wave
yeah,
vinyl?
blue sea glass wave. It's like the wave part of it is so cool because it's just, I mean, well, you just have to see it. It looks like a work of art, really. I mean, it was as expensive as a work of art. I'll tell you
Yeah,
that, but worth
Yeah.
it.
Well, I'm going out to buy a turntable today,
that's
and
that's
I'm
what I was
I'm
going to
I'm
mention.
planning
Yes, Aaron.
to get one of these.
Yeah,
It's pretty cool stuff.
yeah. I'm also a vinyl guy, and like Aaron said, he's getting a turntable today. It's funny because we run Craft Brewed Music, which is a streaming service. I did this blog post once that I was a streaming service founder that didn't like streaming, which puts me in an
Yeah,
odd place. But the whole thing, at Craft Brewed Music, we're about the music discovery. Here's some amazing stuff, and now go track down more of it if you're so inclined. Whether that be vinyl or whatever. But
yeah. No, I love craft brewed music, and it's so cool. I mean, I get larger checks from that than Spotify.
well, that's great to hear. That makes me feel good. That's
Yeah, it's just and I dig Spotify too. It's just
sure.
like obviously it's a horrible business model for
Yeah.
it's like selling lobster rolls for 1 cent. Like it's great for the
Right.
buyer.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's and it serves its purpose, and I use it, and I use Apple Music, and everybody does, and we're not trying to replace that. But I'm glad to hear you say that about craft brewed music. Obviously, we're always working hard to make those checks bigger, but you know, as people I think know, I'm also an artist manager, and I really developed that. I sat down and said, what could I build if I had some investment money? And Craft Brewed Music ended up being the answer to that question. What could I build to help my clients, and many other artists? So that is the goal. I designed
think
the
it's a
whole thing
great
with my manager hat
step
on.
forward.
Yeah, thank you. And it's just fun shining a spotlight on music like yours and all the other stuff we talk about here.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
And a platform to discover musicians like Jesse Terry and then go out and buy their albums on vinyl and listen to it as they were conceived.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the best of both worlds right there. You can get that.
Ten nights more, 10 times to be reborn, 10 rooms with deadbolt doors. Lately I feel like hiding, but the lights draw me in to paint a canvas all over again, and meet a stranger who knows where I've been. Maybe it feels like flying as we're hanging in the stars, hanging in the stars. Feels like we're hanging in the stars, one by one, hanging in the stars.
Thank you for listening. Craft Brewed Music, both the podcast and the streaming service, has the mission of promoting this music and these artists. We can't do that without ears on the music. So if you like what you've heard here, we're going to ask 2 small favors. First, tell someone about the podcast. Secondly, go to the App Store or Google Play, download the Craft Brewed Music app, and try a free 2-week trial of the streaming service. For more information, visit us at craftbrewedmusic.com. Thanks again, and see you next time.